Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could just ask you to take your seats, we will commence very shortly. Thank you very much.
Your Highness, Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Your Highnesses, Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, and also hello viewers online. Good morning, and it's really an honor to have such a high-level delegation here at our General Assembly here in Manama, in Bahrain. And today we start with an extraordinary General Assembly. So I want to keep this part focused on the topic at hand. And as soon as we have dealt with the points for this extraordinary General Assembly, we will move on to the FEI Ordinary General Assembly, and the customary opening address will be done then from both myself and from our hosts for the FEI General Assembly 2018. But maybe a little word why we decided to have an extraordinary General Assembly this year, and this is for several reasons. First of all, it has been a long time since we had made modifications to the statutes, and as all things evolve, it has become apparent that our statutes were not entirely fit for purpose. The governance of international sports federations is very high on the current agenda of governments also, and a lot of governmental and intergovernmental organizations are taking a hard look at the processes and systems in place in international sports federations. As a member of the Association of Summer Olympic International Federations Governance Task Force, we worked hard on the assessment of the governance of the international Olympic federations, and we created a self-assessment tool based upon 5 key governance principles, which are transparency, integrity, democracy, development and solidarity, and also control mechanisms. And to measure these key governance principles, we established 50 indicators so that an organization can assess and see exactly where they stand and what needs improvement. Naturally, we applied the checklist and the 50 indicators also to the FEI, and as we suspected it, it highlighted our strengths, but it also revealed some weaknesses. And the proposed changes to the statutes here today reflect these areas of improvement. You have had time to review and discuss the proposed changes, and now we are submitting them for your approval. And also, in order to adapt to a reality which already exists for many years, we are proposing to change the structure with regards to the regional groups 1 and 2, and the proposal is to recognize groups 1 and 2 as one regional group, like they are already meeting for many years, and keeping at the same time 2 representatives in the Bureau, which will become later on, if you approve these statutes, not any longer the Bureau, but it will become the Board, which is much more comprehensive in the actual world. And they will also keep their 2 representatives in the nominations and the FEI Solidarity Committees. We had the possibility already to discuss these changes during the rules session yesterday. So I would now ask our Secretary General to take us through this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Your Highnesses, Mr. President, Bureau members, delegates, distinguished guests, members of the press and media, and those who are following us today on FEI TV. There are 133 national federations in total. Therefore, to reach a quorum, we require 67 national federations, either present or represented by proxies. We are very happy to announce that we have reached a quorum with 116 national federations. There are currently today 77 nations present with 39 proxies. With that, we can continue to the point of the agenda, which is the election of scrutineers. We would like to propose to you today, as chair of the scrutineers, Denise Cole from Jamaica. Denise, maybe you could stand up. Thank you. Miklos Harmi from Hungary. And Nadia Shabi from Morocco. Thank you. You will have received in your packages cards, green for yes, red for against, and white for abstention. May I please ask you to elect these members today by showing your green cards, please? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? In that case, you have elected the scrutineers for the 2018 FEI Extraordinary General Assembly. Thank you very much. We will now move on to point 4, which is modifications to the FEI statutes. The approval today, just on the outset, the approval of the rules today includes the modifications and/or adjustments which were presented and agreed at yesterday's rules session, with the exception of the identified separate votes that will be highlighted for jumping and the veterinary regulations, which we will do during the Ordinary General Assembly. We will now, therefore, proceed with the approval of the FEI statutes. May I ask for your approval, please? Thank you. Anyone against? 2 against. Okay. We have 3 against. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Okay. So we have a majority, 2 abstentions. So we have a majority who have approved the statutes with 3 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. We will now proceed with the Ordinary General Assembly.
Your Highness, Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we can now move on to the FEI Ordinary General Assembly 2018. Welcome again, and thank you for your time, your commitment, and your passion for equestrian sport. We are here in Bahrain to discuss matters which are important to our sport and our community, and we are here to make key decisions for the future. This is a big responsibility, The equestrian world is vast and continues to grow, and there are many interests at stake, as well as an important heritage to uphold and promote. The General Assembly is our platform to ensure that we fulfill that remit and have the necessary dialogue and consensus within our community. Together, we need to make informed decisions so that our sport can progress according to market forces and the will of our global community. 2018 was definitely a busy and interesting year, and we have a lot to be proud of. Our sport is growing in size and scope, with a 69% increase in the number of events over the past 10 years, and more athletes and horses registered internationally than ever before. We are also financially in a good place, as you can see in the full auditor's report. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our top partner, Longines, represented here in Bahrain by its Vice President, Juan Carlos Capelli. But we have also secured successfully new commercial partners in 2018. Just a few days ago, we announced a new partnership with Fosun, one of China's largest privately held multinational companies, as title sponsor of the Best Athlete Award, which, as you will know, will be revealed tonight. And I'm delighted to have Mr. Wen, global partner of Fosun, here with us at the General Assembly. Also hot off the press, we have a signed new 4-year international travel partnership with ATPI Sports Events, part of the ATPI Group. ATPI will run the FEI's corporate travel needs as official FEI travel agent and as official FEI travel desk. And we are happy to welcome Michiel Olbers and his dedicated team here with us. And last but not least, we also very recently signed a 3-year agreement with French camera equipment company Move&See, famous for its Pixio auto-follow camera used for equestrian sport training since its launch in 2015. The new partnership sees Pixio become FEI Dressage official supplier and official FEI campus sponsor. This takes the sponsors for FEI Campus to 3, including Autosports, who are also here with us today. All of these collaborations mark another step forward in the FEI's commercial and marketing strategy, which has been in place since November 2017 and which you will receive a full report on later today. The positive financial results allowed us once again, like in 2016, to direct more funds towards FEI Solidarity and ensure we continue to grow sustainably and responsibly. Since FEI Solidarity was created in 2012, we have invested close to 14 million Swiss francs to provide solutions to the challenges which obstruct the development of our sport globally. And alongside these efforts, we have also delivered 284 national federation programs in 88 countries, providing national federations with the tools and the expertise to grow the sport from the base up. And as you may recall, we announced a new partnership with Longines at the General Assembly last year for an FEI Solidarity retraining of racehorses program, and this officially kicked off in September with the first course for tutors held in Singapore. Building from the base up also includes administrative expertise, and some of you here can attest. Last month, we held our second administrators course for national federations at the FEI headquarters in Lausanne. 27 participants from 17 nations took part in the 2018 edition, and I was delighted to see the turnout and the enthusiasm of which this 5-day course was met. The FEI is a service organization, and it's vital we nurture our links with all our counterparts in national federations and share key insights into FEI processes, policies, tools, and best practices. It might sound cliché, but it's a team effort, and we are far stronger together. Development like youth is key to our future, and 2018 was also a year focused on youth. The tone was set with the FEI Sports Forum, where we invited a panel of young athletes from all over the world and representing all the FEI disciplines to discuss the challenges and the opportunities for young athletes in our sport today. They were impressive in their resolve and their maturity. We need to take time to listen to the next generation and always keep their needs at the forefront of our minds. They are our future, and it's important that we reward their ambition and ensure they have the necessary support and stepping stones to grow and forge a career. And we are doing that in many respects. This year, there were more international events aimed at youth than ever before. To be precise, also there an increase of 74% over the last 10 years. One of the highlights was, of course, the Youth Olympic Games 2018. 30 riders from 30 nations traveled to Buenos Aires, full of hope and pride to represent their nation and their region, with continental teams made up of 5 different nations vying for Olympic stardom. They perfectly represented our sport, the diversity of our sport and the values of our sport. And I was very proud to show IOC President Thomas Bach, when he visited our venue, just how bright our future is. The IOC decided, and I was very happy to be part of that decision-making process, decided that it's time for Africa. So the next Youth Olympic Games will be in Senegal, and we look forward to work closely with the National Federation and the National Olympic Committee to make also this a huge success. But back to the now and to the biggest event of 2018, the FEI World Equestrian Games in Tryon. It's no secret that there were challenges, but there were also some great successes. And I want to take this moment to address some of the issues and celebrate the achievements, because the World Equestrian Games are a huge undertaking, and we need to fully appreciate the scale of this event when judging its failings. As you know, it was a late allocation, and the organizing committee had about 2 years to organize and prepare for the Games, with some very difficult weather conditions in the build-up. Some of the facilities were not delivered, and others were not ready in time. And during the Games themselves, we had to contend with Hurricane Florence. But at the end of the day, we did have great sport, with the exceptions of endurance, which I will come back on a moment. But we saw the first teams qualify for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games, and we had an important delegation from the IOC with President Bach in Tryon to witness that milestone with us. And when it comes to endurance at the World Equestrian Games, what happened at the start of the competition was, of course, absolutely unacceptable. This is why we asked our integrity unit to investigate, and yesterday these findings were shared with you, but the process is absolutely not finished. However, it was not all negative, and I want to reiterate my full support for the decision to stop the endurance competition due to the exceptional climatical conditions and the strain on the horses. This decision was based entirely on the principle of horse welfare, which we all agree must always come as a first priority. As I said earlier, it was certainly not the best day for endurance, but I believe it was absolutely a great day for horse welfare. In this vein, we have created a temporary committee to look at how we can redefine endurance with horse welfare and horsemanship at the forefront and a clear focus on riding instead of racing. We have to put strict timeline on this temporary committee, and there will be an extensive report which we will discuss in the Sports Forum together with you in 2019. And I all invite you already now to fit into this process. But the big question which we had to address on the back of the World Equestrian Games 2018 is the future of the World Equestrian Games as a concept. This assessment has not happened overnight, and it's not a reaction of some of the challenges faced at the World Equestrian Games this year. The symptoms have been building for some time. You could say we are the victims of our own success, and with the size and scope of the World Equestrian Games growing every edition, we are now at a point where we have to admit it's difficult to find organizers for this event. We have opened a bidding process for the WEG 2022 already 2 times without identifying a successful candidate. And then, from a national federation perspective, we also see that there is a struggle to get the funding to send full teams and full delegations to the WEG. Some national federations chose not to send athletes, even though they had achieved the minimum eligibility requirements. We need to think carefully about the future of the World Equestrian Games and need the courage to look at the future of our World Championships and ask if the WEG is still fit for purpose. This dilemma is not unique to our sport, and in line with Olympic Agenda 2020 and the new norm, we need events that are sustainable and where the cost to organize, but also to participate, are under control. So the FEI board, I can say now, decided to open a bidding process for separate World Championships with a focus on combined bids. Is this the end of the World Equestrian Games? Not necessarily, as this procedure will still allow bidders to apply for all championships in one event. But we will not any longer be kept hostage of our own ambition. And whilst all the sport was taking place center stage, and forgive me if I had not been able to manage to review the Longines FEI jumping World Cup, Dressage World Cup finals in Paris, and the fabulous Longines FEI Jumping Nations Cup final in Barcelona. But behind the scenes, there were also several governance-related milestones, such as the election of the athletes' representatives to form the Athletes' Committee. A total of 52 athletes from 26 countries on 5 continents stood for election. And amongst the elected, we have 3 Olympians as well, 1 Paralympian. This was the second time in history of the FEI that athlete elections have been held, and we saw, luckily, a 100% increase in participation in numbers of candidates. And of course, I cannot skim over the presidential election, which is, as you know, uncontested. And I was not entirely sure what to make of this. On the one hand, it could imply that there is trust in the organization, which is great. But on the other hand, maybe nobody wants the job. In any case, as far as I'm concerned, I do want the job. And I see this as a recognition for what this organization and we all together have achieved and still have to achieve. And I hope you have all had the opportunity to study my presidential program, where I have outlined my roadmap and the core focuses for the next 4 years. Team spirit was definitely one of my highlights for 2018 and the last 4 years. And I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the FEI Bureau and all the committees for their wise counsel and time on a wide range of matters, the national federations and their staff for their hard work and ambition, all the athletes and their support teams for determination, the organization committees for their innovation, the officials for their professionalism, and the many volunteers for their generosity and enthusiasm. And of course, our commercial partners. And last but not least, of course, the FEI headquarters, led by our Secretary General, Sabrina Ibanez. Thank you all for your support. And finally, I would like to take this opportunity also to thank the Bahrain Royal Equestrian and Endurance Federation, and in particular His Majesty the King, who was fortunate to meet earlier this week. His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, representative of His Majesty the King, and President of the Bahrain National Olympic Committee. His Highness Sheikh Faisal bin Rashid Al Khalifa, President of the Bahrain Royal Equestrian and Endurance Federation, and the Secretary General, Mr. Khalid Al Alawi. The FEI is no stranger to the wonderful hospitality of the Bahraini people. We had actually planned to hold the 2003 FEI General Assembly here in Bahrain, and all preparations had been done. But unfortunately, we had to cancel due to the Gulf War. In 2005, the FEI did manage to come for the November Bureau meeting, which took place in this very hotel, and it was the last Bureau meeting chaired by Her Royal Highness Doña Pilar. This strong relationship with Bahrain is in many ways thanks to my dear friend and Vice President, His Excellency Sheikh Khalid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, and I want to take this opportunity to thank him for his great contribution to the FEI and horse sport, and for representing Bahrain and Group 7 so valiantly for all these years. So now I would like to welcome the President of the Bahrain Royal Equestrian and Endurance Federation, His Highness Sheikh Faisal bin Rashid Al Khalifa, to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Representative to His Majesty the King for Charity Work and Youth Affairs, Chairman of the Supreme Council for Youth and Sports, President of the Bahrain Olympic Committee, Mr. Inmar Devos, President of the FEI, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by welcoming you all to the Kingdom of Bahrain, a country proud of its rich history and culture. I foremost would like to praise the vision of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of the Kingdom of Bahrain, for the continuous development of peace and prosperity. Allow me to remark on the driving force, that is His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa. Your Highness, you are truly a source of inspiration and a role model for all Bahrainis and indeed global youth. Your accolades go beyond the realm of sport, remarkably raising the bar every day and elevating our standards to achieve His Majesty's Vision 2030. During the Bronze Era, the Mesopotamians called Bahrain the paradise of Dilmun. In the Babylonian history of the region, Bahrain was known as the Eternal Island, where it was believed if you were buried here, you would live forever. Centuries ago, Bahrain was named the island of 1,000,000 palm trees, where there was a palm tree in sight wherever you looked. Horses in Arabia have long been a symbol of power, beauty, and prestige. Looking through Bahrain's archives, you will find horses engraved in Dilmun seals dating back more than 4,000 years ago. And as everyone in this room already knows, watching an Arabian horse in action today can be described as poetry in motion, a true treasure of ages. With a heart full of pride, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all members of the International Equestrian Federation General Assembly. I trust that you have had fruitful meetings this week. What you achieve today will elevate and modernize our beloved sport for many years to come. I hope that the Bahraini spirit will instill in you the wisdom and inspiration to go further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Highness Sheikh Faisal bin Rashid Al Khalifa. We are absolutely delighted to be here and to fulfill that General Assembly dream of 2003. But before we start, let's take a moment to look back and honor some of the great people that we regretfully lost this year. Can I ask you to stand, please? Thank you very much. So, Your Highnesses, Your Highness, Sheikh Nasser, Excellencies, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you warm-heartedly for your visit and for your warm hospitality here in Bahrain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can take your seats now. No. Thank you. These seats will be removed now, and then we will commence in just a few minutes. Thank you very much. Apparently, the members of the board would like to sit in those seats.
Okay. Thank you very much for this, and now I'm happy to pass the floor to our Secretary General. But before doing that, I would like to excuse two members. Bob Thompson, our chair of Reining, couldn't make it here for familial reasons, and as you know, our friend Brian Sheehan, who had to resign for reasons of health, and I would like to take this opportunity also to wish him all the best and a speedy recovery. Thank you. Please, Sabrina.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just a little update regarding the number of federations that are present or represented. There are 119 federations now, with 79 present and 40 proxies. Then we move on to point 3. So for the avoidance of any doubt, those scrutineers that you have just elected for the Extraordinary General Assembly are also being proposed for the Ordinary General Assembly. Can I have your approval, please? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay. Then we move on to point 4, affiliation. The chair of Group 8, Jack Huang, and the FEI Development Officer, Jean-Philippe Camboulive, had a very successful visit to North Korea 2 weeks ago and confirmed that North Korea had fulfilled all the criteria necessary for the affiliation process to become a member of the FEI. We are therefore proposing to you today to affiliate the Democratic People's Republic of Korea Equestrian Association to the General Assembly. Could we ask for your approval, please? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Congratulations. We are now 134 national federations that are affiliated to the FEI. I'm exceedingly happy to say to you today, and this is a first, we have no suspensions this year, so that is good news. And no exclusions. So then we move on to point 5, which is the approval of the Ordinary General Assembly minutes from Montevideo. There is a small clarification that needs to be done to these minutes. In this regards, point 24.5, erroneously it mentions that Constance Popinou's term, Constance is a member of the FEI Tribunal, would be only for 1 year, which would mean that she would have ended this year, and actually it was 2 years. This was documented everywhere else, but it was wrongly minuted. So with this edit, can we ask for your approval to the minutes for last year's General Assembly, please? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Very well. Then we move on to the approval of the annual report. This has been on online. Can we ask for your approval for the annual report for 2017? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? In that case, the annual report has been approved. And now I'd like to ask our Chief Executive Officer, Financial Officer, Claude Prat, to take us through points 7 through 13. Claude?
Mr. President, members of the board, dear delegates, today's presentation will have 4 chapters. First, we will go through the audited financial statements for 2017. Then I will leave the floor to Brian Mangan for his audit and compliance report. We then will go on with the revised 2018 forecast, and we will conclude with the 2019 budgets. The audited financial statements are in your Annex 7.1 of your documents. It also contains the management comments that gives more detailed explanation to the numbers. The revenues for 2017 amounted to 49,509,000 Swiss francs. This was 5.9 million Swiss francs above budget. The expenses were 47,057,000 Swiss francs. That was 3.8 million Swiss francs above budget for a net result of 2,451,000 Swiss francs. I will now go through main differences that we have with the budget. First, in commercial revenues, there is a difference of 3 million Swiss francs compared to the budget. This is the result of an exchange of invoice with our top partner for VIK sponsorship. It allows our top sponsor to recover the VAT in Switzerland. It is mirrored by the same invoice in the expense side, and it is therefore neutral to the P&L. On the operational revenues, there are 2 sections I would like to mention. The first one is the calendar fee and organization dues. They are higher by 1 million Swiss francs compared to budget, and this is a consequence of being conservative on the budget process. Anti-doping and welfare generated 518,000 Swiss francs more income than planned. This is also a consequence of having a higher number of competitions, therefore a higher number of horses that pay the fees for the anti-doping and welfare. On the expense side, on the commercial expenses, again, the 3 million Swiss francs for the VIK sponsorship with our top partner. And then there was also an additional support for the Nations Cup in 2017. You will remember that in 2017 we did not have a sponsor for the Nations Cup. Therefore, we had made in the previous year provisions to support the Nations Cup during that year, and the additional expenses is $1,261,000. I would like to make the note that this was a release of provision. So again, this was neutral to the accounts in 2017. On the operational expenses, there are 3 items that I would like to mention. The professional fees and consulting. There are 943,000 Swiss franc below budget. You will have the full details of what these professional fees consist in. The details are in note 15 of the financial statements. Education was slightly lower than budget by 194,000. That was due to a little bit of delays in preparing the online courses for the campus. And anti-doping and welfare is 666,000 above budget. And this is a result of a provision that we made for future anti-doping projects and education in 2017. I would just like to take a brief moment to talk to you about anti-doping and welfare in terms of finances. If you look at the financial statements, you will see that the income amounts to 4,418,000 Swiss francs. The direct cost is 3,616,000 Swiss francs. So we could think that the anti-doping and welfare generates profit for the FEI. This is not the case because we need to factor in that there are indirect costs that are located in other sections of the P&L. And I have listed here some of those costs. You have the FEI staff charges that are needed to administer the program. There's also some legal costs and a little bit of the integrity unit fee that represent in total 802,000. So when you add that to the expenses, you can see that the program sustains itself but does not generate any profit. Also, a good element this year were the net financial results, where we had a 1.4 million positive performance on the portfolio. So the total surplus that we had at the FEI for 2017 was 6,372,000. And the board decided to allocate some of that surplus for future projects or for solidarity. The first decision was to not deduct from the Solidarity Fund the 2017 projects. That amounted to 662,000. So we didn't deduct that amount, so it stays in the funds, and the projects were paid on the FEI profit. The board also decided to allocate an extraordinary 1 million Swiss franc to the Solidarity Fund for future projects. In anti-doping and welfare, we made a provision for 628,000 to develop additional testing and education. We also allocated 431,000 to the provision for financial litigation and operational risks. And we added 1.2 million Swiss franc provision for the WEG 2018. So the total amount of surplus allocated is 3,921,000, leaving the net profit of 2,451,000 that I have mentioned earlier. Are there any questions to those financial statements? If not, I will ask the General Assembly to approve the financial statements as presented. May I have your green cards, please? Anybody against? Any abstention? Thank you. I will now leave the floor to Brian Mangan, who will discuss his audit and compliance report, which you will find in Annex 8.1 of your documents.
Good morning, Mr. President, Madam Secretary General, Bureau colleagues, dear friends. Our role on the Audit and Compliance Committee is to examine the operations of the FEI on behalf of you, the member federations. We're satisfied with the financial management and are pleased to see that a risk management document was adopted by the Bureau during the year. A culture of compliance continues within the organisation that respects the statutes, the regulations and the law. The challenge for the future is to continue to build capability, especially in the area of education and training of officials. I'd like to thank all at headquarters for the support they gave us in carrying out our task, and also my colleagues Janice Shardlow and Vicky Glynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We're now moving to the release of the Bureau and the Secretary General for the 2017 accounts. Everybody who agrees to give the release to the Bureau, the Board, and the Secretary General for the 2017 accounts, may I have your green cards, please? Anybody against? Abstention? Thank you. I will now ask the General Assembly to elect the FEI auditors for 2018. We propose you to elect PricewaterhouseCoopers in Lausanne. May I have your green cards if you approve? Anybody against? Abstention? Thank you. I will now need the General Assembly's approval for the financial charges for 2019. They are in the Annex 11.1 of your documents, and they are unchanged compared to 2018. May I have your approval, please? Anybody against? Abstention? Thank you. We will now move to the updated forecast for 2018. This document is the Annex 13.1, and it also has detailed comments as to the numbers that are in this annex. The main differences with the original budget consist in the non-operational revenues. The first point is the Youth Olympic Game. We had not planned in the original budget the 83,000 contribution from the IOC for the Youth Olympic Game. In the other revenues, amounting to 473,000 Swiss francs, we have a provision release in there that is for 240,000 to pay for the WEG Pavilion in 2018. And we also have an exceptional contribution for the organizer of the World Cup Dressage in Paris for 115,000. And there was also a reimbursement of value-added taxes in Switzerland for 118,000. On the expense side, we have a little bit of savings on sponsorship expenses for 135,000, mainly less activation than what we had planned for. TV expenses are on the opposite, 730,000 more than what we had originally planned, mainly due to the hiring of commentators for the WEG. There was also a digital on-site support that was done at the WEG. And there was also more events that were live streamed through FEI TV, and that created additional cost for the production. In the general administrative expenses, travel expenses are a little bit higher, and this is a consequence of the creation of the Commercial Advisory Group, and also the fact that we paid for travel and accommodation for the timekeeping team at the WEG test events. Are there any questions to the updated forecast for 2018? If not, may I have the approval of the General Assembly? Anybody against? Any abstention? Thank you. We will now move on to the last section, and this is the budget for 2019. It is in the Annex 13.2 of your documents. The revenues for 2019 are forecasted, the commercial revenues are forecasted to be at 28,776,000. This is about £1 million Swiss franc higher than 2018. Half of that increase is due to foreign exchange effect of mainly euro versus Swiss francs. And there are new deals that were announced by our president earlier for 487,000. The calendar fees and organizing dues have been budgeted at 6,230,000. This is 330,000 higher than 2018. The increase has been done to reflect the historical trend we have in that number. On the other hand, the hosting fee at 1,310,000 is lower than 2018. Reason is very simple. 2019 is a non-WEG year, so there will be no hosting fee for the WEG. And the anti-doping and welfare has been forecasted at 4,250,000 for 2019, which is also slightly higher than 2018 to reflect the increased numbers of competition. On the non-operational revenues, there are two items that I would like to point out. One is the other revenues. There are 370,000 of other revenues. This is mainly a release of a provision for anti-doping and welfare projects, such as substance elimination analysis, lab approval maintenance process, and increased limb sensitivity studies. The other big item in the non-operational revenues is the contribution from funds. This is the amount that we take from the funds to pay for the projects that were dedicated by these funds. The biggest one in there, solidarity projects for 1,017,000. Then there is also the online campus for 495,000. We have a veterinary research project with Glasgow University for 105,000. And there's a few IT ongoing projects that will be paid by the IT fund. These are the entry system, the invitation system, and the online draft schedule for an amount of 369,000. On the expense side, a few comments. Commercial expenses are forecast to be at 23,186,000. This is lower by 843,000 compared to 2018. We are doing some savings in marketing expenses. 2019 will not be a WEG year, so there will be less marketing effort. And we have also lower broadcast expenses. On the operational expenses, the item that I would like to point out is the professional fee and consultings at 3,945,000. The details of this section is listed in my comments extensively, but just to give you a little bit of a summary, this concerns mainly IT projects, IT maintenance, journalistic support, photography, and the contribution of the FEI to the General Assembly organizer. Education will be at 1 million Swiss franc. It is slightly increasing, reflecting the conclusion of the officials working group. Anti-doping and welfare is forecasted to be at 3,600,000. Don't forget also in there Adding to that, we have the indirect costs that I explained earlier in the 2017 accounts. And the staff charges are increasing at 14,953,000. There are a few positions that have been planned for next year. Not all of them have been allocated by the management yet. You will find the details of those new positions that we're planning in my comments. There is also a little bit of inflation in Switzerland, 1%, that will affect the staff charges. And let's not forget also there is the full year effect of the people that were hired in 2018. This budget has a conservative approach, as usual. We like to have good surprises and not bad surprises. It still generates a small profit of 233,000. Are there any questions to the budget? Thank you. If not, then I will ask the General Assembly to approve the 2019 budget. Anybody against? Any abstention? I thank you very much. This concludes my finance presentation for this General Assembly.
Thank you, Claude. Thank you very much. We will now move on to point 14, which is approval modifications to regulations. 14.1, as I mentioned before during the Extraordinary General Assembly, today's approval of rules includes modifications and adjustments presented at yesterday's rule session, with the exception of the separate votes that will be highlighted for both jumping and veterinary regulations. Therefore, for the FEI General Regulations, may I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Okay. Thank you very much. We move on to the internal regulations. May I ask for your approval of the internal regulations, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Then the internal regulations have been approved. Then we move on to Tokyo 2020 Olympic regulations. Again, may I ask for your approval, please? Okay. These are, of course, subject to the approval of the IOC. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Nope. Then these have been approved. We move on to Tokyo 2020 Paralympic regulations. Same thing, subject to IPC. May I have your approval, please? Thanks. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Very good. These have been approved as well then. Then we move on to jumping, and there I'll ask the chair, Stefan Ellenbrook, to talk us through.
Mr. President, Madam Secretary General, members of the board, dear delegates, I would like to take you through the points which are related to jumping. And the first point on the agenda is point 15.1, the Technical Committee report. With your documents, you have received the report of the Jumping Committee. Are there any questions or comments concerning this report? Can I then ask you for your approval? Anybody against? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Then I would like to inform you about the decisions taken by the board. You found a list in the report of the technical committee, and the board dealt already with the following rules and regulations: the FEI World Cup Series rules, the FEI Jumping Pony Trophy rules, the FEI Jumping Nations Cup Youth rules, the Longines Global Champions Tour rules, the Global Champions League rules, and the Masters Grand Slam Series rules. And in the second board meeting following this General Assembly, the board will make decisions on the FEI Jumping Nations Cup rules, the FEI Jumping World Challenge rules and the EEM Speed Challenge Series rules. Point 15.3 are the jumping rules and rules for championships and games modifications. Yesterday, in the session about the rule changes, you had the opportunity to discuss the proposals, and I assume that there are no further questions and comments. However, there was a request from the USEF, which got the support of some other federations, that we should vote separately on one of the proposals in the FEI jumping rules, and this is Annex 6.1, which are the CSI requirements worldwide, and in this specific case, how we deal with the start of horses in events which run more or less parallel, which are national events and international events. We had a discussion with Will Connell after the meeting, and I learned this morning that Will wants to make a short comment on this.
Thank you, Mr. President, delegates, Chair of the Jumping Committee. Yes, as the Chair said, we had a very productive discussion after the meeting yesterday with a number of other national federations contributing, and we felt that we had found a proposal that we would all agree to, but this proposal would involve a number of additional changes that would not fit with the procedures that are agreed for rule changes now at the General Assembly, and therefore we were not able to bring forward a proposal that could be voted on here. And therefore it is the position of the USA that we would now support the rule change as suggested by the Jumping Committee, but request that the discussions carry on ahead of perhaps a rule change for next year, and would also request that the FEI consider whether there is a mechanism for making amendments around rule changes. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss it. I believe it also brought to the attention of a number of national federations the need to be cognitive of some of the knock-on effects of rule changes. And we therefore fully support the rule amendment as presented.
Thank you very much, Will. Let me make two comments on that. First of all, I really want to thank you for that really productive meeting we had yesterday and for the open discussions we had. That was very, very useful. And the second remark is that we definitely take your remarks on board, and we will have a look at that, how that new rule, if approved, will work in practice. And then we will see for next year if we make some adjustments there. Thank you very much for that. However, I also learned this morning that there are clear legal procedures, and as USEF was not the only federation who asked to vote on that separately, it seems that now we have to still vote on that separately, and I see that the legal director is nodding, so obviously we do it in the right way. So I suggest that we first vote on this specific rule if you agree to the proposal of the Jumping Committee, and after that we vote on the jumping rules as such. So the question is now, because this is what we couldn't discuss this morning, if we do that with technical device or if we do it with a show of cards. Show of cards. Okay, first. Good. Then can I have your approval on the Jumping Rules Annex 6, as you can read it again there on the screens? Can I have your approval for that? Thank you very much. Anybody against? One against, as far as I can see. Abstentions? Thank you very much. Then this specific rule change is approved. And then I would like to ask you for your approval for the FEI jumping rules. Can I have your approval for that as well?
Wait 1 second, though, Stefan. We still would like it to go and vote on for the online invitation system.
That's fine. We discussed that we do that as next step, but we also can do that right now.
You happy with that? Okay.
Moving? Okay. So can I then ask you for your approval for the FEI jumping rules? Thank you very much. Anybody against? Abstentions? And thank you very much for your approval. Yesterday, in the session about the rule changes, you heard that the FEI wants to start another pilot phase on the FEI online invitation system. Gaspar was so kind and introduced you to this project. We have to vote on that as well, and that's why I'm asking you if you are in favor of it, and I can now ask you for your approval. Thank you very much. Anybody against? Abstentions? Then on behalf of the Jumping Committee, I thank you very much for approval of the rules and regulations.
Thank you, Stefan. And then just to go back to Will's comment, yes, we will, as we mentioned during the groups with the Bureau, look at a way to implement another step, and we'll discuss it at the Sports Forum next year to help you. Okay, well, then we move on to dressage. So the chair is Frank Kemperman. Frank, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, dear delegates. I hope you have seen and maybe read the technical committee report and your annexes. Are there any questions, remarks to this report? If not, may I ask for your approval? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That means we can go to 16.2, decisions taken by the Bureau. The Bureau, today the Board, has accepted the Nations Cup rules for coming year, the World Cup rules, and the bid process for the West European League. So that's approved by the Bureau. And in the next Board meeting, I have to say, the Board will look at the dressage judging working group report, which we have presented yesterday. So that's regarding decisions taken by the Bureau. That's for information. The dressage rule, 16.3, we have seen yesterday in the session that there was no discussion. Are there any remarks now today? It doesn't look like that, so we could ask for your approval for the dressage rules. Thank you. Somebody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Then I would like to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues of the Dressage Committee, and especially the staff in Lausanne, especially the Dressage Department, for the hard work last year. Thank you very much. That's it for Dressage.
Thank you, Frank. We move on to Para-Dressage, and I'd like to call Amanda Bond, the chair, to the podium, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, and dear delegates. It's my honor to be here today to present and take you through the items in relation to para-dressage. In your papers, you have the technical committee report, and at this point I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the volunteer members of our technical committee who work extremely hard in both the committee and a variety of working groups to make sure that we're pushing our sport forward. So can I ask if there's any questions or comments in relation to the technical committee report? If not, may I ask for your approval? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Moving on to 17.2, this is the decisions taken by the Bureau. There was one item for para-dressage, and that was the approval of the 2019 ranking rules, and the changes reflect the new format for the World Equestrian Games and Paralympic Games. Then we move on to the para-dressage rules modifications. In yesterday's rules session, there were no questions or comments, but can I take the opportunity to see if there's anything now? If not, may I ask for your approval for the modifications to the rules? Any against? Or abstentions? Thank you very much. And the final item, 17.4, is the para-equestrian classification rules and those modifications. Any questions or comments? Therefore, I ask for your approval, please. Any against? Abstentions? Fairly straightforward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. We move on to eventing. Chair David O'Connor, please.
Mr. President, Madam Secretary General, board members, and fellow delegates, good morning. Please accept the eventing report as proposed in 18.1. Are there any questions or comments on this report? So I ask for your approval of the report and your acceptance. Any against? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the information decisions taken by the Bureau were the approval of the series, the TriStar series in England and the Eventing Rider Masters series throughout Europe and the United States. These were approved by the board the other day. The last Nations Cup series is being presented to the board in its final capacity this afternoon to the board with a late edition, so that will be done by the board hopefully this afternoon. For the eventing rules, yesterday and throughout the weekend we haven't seen any objections to those rules, so are there any further questions or objections to the rules proposed? Okay, if not, I would ask for your approval of the eventing rules for 2019. Any against? Any abstentions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I would also like to very much thank all the national federations for their input through the whole rule change process. I know it can be onerous as we go through, but I do thank all of your input. It helps the committees a lot. And also for the tireless work for the volunteer committee, for the eventing technical committee, they really do. I really do appreciate all of their input and their intellect in trying to keep the sport going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Now we move to point 19, driving. Karoli Fugli, the chair.
Thank you. Mr. President, Secretary General, dear Bureau members, dear delegates, dear guests. You all have received my report in your annexes. I would like to ask, is there any question or comment regarding that document? If not, may I have your approval as it is presented? Against? Abstention? Thank you very much. I don't have any specific item to report to you regarding decisions taken by the Bureau now. So I would like to move to the driving rules, the modifications. Yesterday during the rule session we had no any specific question regarding all the rule changes related to driving. So may I have your approval on the rule changes as presented in your documents? Against? Abstention? Thank you very much. I also would like to take the opportunity to thank on behalf of the driving committee for all the inputs received from the national federations and stakeholders, as well the hard work of the driving department at the headquarters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karoli. So we move on to endurance. As mentioned during the rules session and as well during the meetings with the Bureau 2 days ago, there is the Endurance Temporary Committee, and they will be They will be reaching out to the members of the current technical committee, and they will also be reaching out to other stakeholders before they come up with their recommendations for the sports forum next year. So we will seek your input. Then we move on to the endurance rules. For the endurance rules, we will use the voting devices. Option 1 will be to retain the 2018 endurance rules, and option 2 will be to go with the 2019 rules. Yes, my Director of Governance. Okay. And 0 will be for abstentions. They will let us know when this is. First of all, are there any questions as to how to use these devices? We have a question. Could we have a microphone, please?
Madam Secretary, why to vote this only through the machine? Why not through the raising the hands?
Thank you for this question. I think we don't want to create any confusion, and we want to have an exact count. That's the reason. And we cannot predict in what direction this vote will go, but we need to have a very clear result for that. So that's why we do it through the device. Is that an acceptable answer to you, Dr. Ghanem?
Yes, I think, but as the other, sports, there've been clarification. We would like you, please, to emphasize on the Bureau decision or their view and on this matter, please.
Okay, can you repeat what is your specific request?
I said yesterday we've had a very clear information that the Bureau have reached a decision to ask the committee, the temporary committee, to look into the revision of all the rules. Therefore, we just as a reminder that there is a committee looking after changing the rules. Therefore, we have to give them some time before we make any changes in the rules. So we just remind the members that we are only voting to give the opportunity to the temporary committee to have their time to change the rules and to accept the current rules.
What I understand is that you are saying that you would prefer to stay with the rules as they are now. That's the option 1.
Exactly.
And to allow the temporary committee to come up with the conclusions at the sports forum, and then to have new rules in place, hopefully for a vote in 2019 and for implementation then later on. So that's
exactly.
What you were at.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now I understand. Thank you very much, Dr. Ghanem. Are there any other comments regarding these points? The old or the new? No. And now also everybody understands that it's important that we vote with this device in order to have a very precise result of the vote, because otherwise it could be a bit confusing for us. So, yeah, please.
So again, option 1 will be to retain the 2018 rules. Option 2 will be for the 2019 rules, and 0 will be for abstention, as you can see on the screen. So they'll let me know when it's open, and it'll say open, and then you'll be able to start voting. So the vote is now open. We shall be shortly closing, so if you haven't voted, do so now. Okay, now the vote will be closed. So 119 devices were distributed. There were 114 participants with 8 abstentions. There were 106 valid votes. 76 of those went in favor of the 2018 rules, and 30 were in favor of the 2019 endurance rules. So the 2018 endurance rules stand. Thank you. So now we move on to vaulting, and there I ask John Eccles to come to the podium, please, the chair. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, Madam Secretary-General, board members, ladies and gentlemen. Equestrian vaulting has had yet another successful, exciting and progressive year, as you can see from my report, which has been circulated. Are there any questions regarding the report? In that case, can I ask for your approval, please? Thank you. Any against? Do we have any abstentions? Moving on to item 21.2, decisions taken by the Bureau. These are actually, there are no major decisions that have been taken by the Bureau, and it links into item 21.3, vaulting rules and modifications, which there have been some minor changes and clarifications. Again, these have been circulated. Are there any questions regarding the changes and modifications to the vaulting rules? In that case, can I ask for your approval, please? Thank you. Are there any against? Do we have any abstentions? Again, on behalf of the Vaulting Committee, I would like to thank all of my committee for their extremely hard work during this year, and thank you again.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to reining, and as you have heard, unfortunately, Bob Thompson could not be with us today, and that's regrettable because this was his last year as chair. Bettina, are there any points that you wish to address regarding the technical committee? Maybe you could come to the podium. Thank you.
Mr. President, Madam Secretary General, dear board members, dear national federations, in your annexes, you have seen the report of our chair, Bob Thompson. Do you have any questions on the report? If not, may I ask you for its approval? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. On point number 22.2, I would just like to inform you that during its Bureau meeting, it was decided to terminate with immediate effect the cooperation agreement with NRHA and AQHA for non-compliance with the rules on age of horses and welfare of horses. If these two associations wish to come again into a cooperation agreement with the FEI, they will have to, of course, comply with all these aspects. In point 22.3, the rules modifications, there were no questions raised at the session yesterday. Are there any questions today on the rules? If not, may I ask you for your approval? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bettina. Again, just to remind the national federations to please feed into the process and provide us your thoughts on the way forward with reining. As we mentioned in the rule with the regional groups with the Bureau, that was a meeting. We'd like to hear from you by the end of March, the very latest, so that we can start working on these proposals. And so we are going to now break for a coffee, and we'll be back at 11. Thank you very much.
Check. Huh?
Check. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. Check. Check. 1, 2, 2. Check.
So, ladies and gentlemen, can I invite you to take your seats?
Pulling, pushing, holding on for something. The blue sky is coming, 'cause we're still here. Oh, I feel the love. Yeah, I feel the love. It's something we don't need to understand. Oh, I feel the love. Yeah, I feel the love. Let's just go, no, we don't need a plan. 'Cause I feel the love.
Is everybody ready for me? Mr. President, members of the Bureau, our wonderful delegates that do so much work, and the staff. I haven't heard anybody say anything about the staff. The staff of the FEI who do so much work for us, the delegates, for our countries, and for the FEI generally. Thank you very much. I was appointed onto the nomination committee, which I felt very glad about. And we had a meeting between the 6th and 7th of June this year. And basically, there were some new members. There was an election, and I was made chair, which I was double glad about, because the little dictatorship does come in here and there. Basically, the nominations committee's recommendations, the development of the FEI equestrian disciplines throughout the world is a key operation of the FEI, and as such is captured in the FEI statutes. To progress in this objective, the nominations committee would envisage to have a dedicated member within the technical committee for the development matters. This member shall work closely with the FEI and Solidarity Committee. I found it was a plus having somebody from the staff and from the direct committee to guide us who they thought was a good person as far as experience and expertise. 2, the following review of candidates by the nominations committee is recommended to provide professional feedback to identify and select strong candidates that, however, have not been recommended by the nomination committee for election and appointed on a given year. The aim is to explain the reason for not having been successful, but to encourage them to keep a close relation with the FEI. Although we have been browbeaten by the FEI into giving gender and geographical representation to be our goals, it's recommended by the committee to generally favor expertise over gender. So if you're very sexy or very handsome, that's not going to help you. The recommendations are based on the principle of having the right person in the different decision-making bodies and standing committees based on merits and fulfillment of the job specification. However, in the event of 2 candidates demonstrating similar expertise, preference will be given to a candidate based on gender and geographical newcomers consideration. Staggered terms for standing committees is recommended when the majority of the members have similar terms to avoid potential of malfunctioning of the committees tied to the election of the same time of the major members. You know, I have to have a last word, and this is my call on this committee. I feel very strongly that it should not be a 2-year term, but a 3-year term, because the first term you just follow like a shadow, and the second term you get to know what you're doing, and by the third term you're kicked out. So I would strongly suggest 3 terms if it's possible. It's a very important committee because, trust me, there's plenty of work because you have to read through all the blurb that they write about themselves and their CVs and decide whether that blurb is true or false. So I spent nights trying to do this, as during the day I'm a farmer, so I didn't have time to do such things. And I'm sure our other committee members do the same, to give everybody a fair chance. Obviously, if somebody is terribly good looking, I would suggest that they be chosen, but otherwise, we give them a pretty fair chance for the Bureau to make a decision on this case. I know I'm not half as well equipped as most of these people standing up here to stand up and give these comments, but I think the people that have been put forward, and so many of them want to do these positions. What is it in the FEI that makes people want to do these positions? I mean, I'm really impressed that so many people want to be on this committee or that committee. Anyhow, well done for those who tried out and didn't quite fit the picture, and well done for those that will be chosen. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty, for that very colorful report. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we will move on to elections. Are there any, first of all, maybe one thing you did forget to do, Betty, was to ask if anybody had any questions. No, unnecessary. All right. Thank you, Betty. So, ladies and gentlemen, then we move on to the elections. And the first point on the first position to be elected will be the position for the FEI president. And as you are seeing, our president is leaving the table now. So there was only one candidate for the position of president, and that is our current president, Mr. Igmar de Vos. And that would be for the term 2018 to 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask for your approval for the election of Mr. de Vos? For the sake of good governance, I will say, anyone against? Any abstentions? Then, Igmar, you are our president. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm really deeply touched, and it's very difficult now to have to speak after the colorful speech of Betty. I hope she didn't have to read too much blur from me. And there was only one candidate, so you were not overwhelmed with presidential manifestos. But really to say, I'm honored and privileged to be your president for the next 4 years. And I thank you very much for this very strong support. Thank you for your confidence also. I believe in our sport, I believe in our community, and I believe in our potential. These are exciting times for equestrian. We are growing, our fan base is diversifying, and we have 7 amazing and unique disciplines to promote. And there, as IOC President Thomas Bach said, there the sky is the limit. The FEI is a service organization, and I always have made it clear, it has been my mantra, that this is basically my raison d'etre. This is not my FEI. I'm only your humble servant. The FEI belongs to all of you, and we are here, the FEI, to provide you with the best conditions, the best tools, and the best guidance we can give. To do what? To grow the sport globally, to innovate, to ensure good governance at all levels, to protect and promote the level playing field, to nurture and safeguard our athletes, to be a leader in the sports world, and above all, to preserve the ethos, the culture, and the values which make equestrian sport unique and universal. I'm really very grateful to work with and to be part of such a strong community. Together, and this is the key word, together, we can and we will continue to develop our sport, to attract new athletes, new fans, and new sponsors. And we will do this by ensuring great sport, cutting-edge formats, and great products globally to showcase the unique attributes of our disciplines and our sport. As you know, this is not as simple as it seems. We have a complex sport, and we have specific challenges which no other sport has to contend with. But I believe in the team at the FEI headquarters. I believe in the committees, the board, as we call it now, and all the volunteers that actively support our decision-making process. And I believe in you, national federations, and your abilities. One of my biggest priorities is to keep our community, this community, together and ensure that we stand together, because this is how we can continue to drive the sport to new heights. I'm really looking forward to 2019 and beyond. We have many Olympic qualifiers ahead, including the Longines FEI Jumping Nations Cup final next year. And we will be testing our new Olympic formats, not just from a sports perspective, but also with our officials, Olympic broadcasting system, Swiss timing, so that we are 100% ready before implementation at the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2020. We will continue to develop and roll out the commercial strategy with hopefully many new partners to come. And amongst many exciting plans, we will put also in action all the work and the thinking behind the reform of our official system and the online invitation system, as well as new technologies, graphics, and applications that are exciting for spectators. One of the biggest challenges ahead, and we all know that, is to do the right thing for endurance. It's about placing the welfare of the horse and horsemanship first, because this horsemanship is what makes all the disciplines within the FEI family unique from all other sports. This special bond between a human athlete and a horse. We are growing in size, in scope, but also in vision. Our standards are high and our community expects the very best. And we are all on this journey together. It's not the mission of one man, but of a community, and I'm grateful to everyone in this room for all what we have achieved and for all what we are going to achieve in the future. And now I would like to take the opportunity to thank some of the important people that have led me to this moment and made it possible to do this on a day-by-day basis. And first of all, I would like to thank my wife. I have to admit I forgot to mention her last time, 4 years ago. And I can tell you I've been reminded of this very regularly. But really, she's my rock, and she stands by me even though I'm very rarely home. And the same goes for my 4 children. They are wonderful. I'm proud of them. I'm fortunate to have such a family which is also passionate about the sport and supports me every way. So thank you very much, darling. I also want to take this opportunity to thank my predecessor, Her Royal Highness, Princess Haya, for believing in me and allowing me to start this journey in the FEI in 2011. She has led the FEI with great gusto. She had a very strong vision to modernize, to professionalize, and to make the FEI more accountable. So I'm grateful for her legacy, and I'm fortunate to follow in her footsteps. And last but not least, I want to thank my dear friend, Jackie Buchman, who many of you knew. He was a lifelong mentor of me, and without him I wouldn't be here today. He is not longer with us, but he is very often on my mind, and I carry his advice wherever I go. Thank you very much, everybody.
So now we will move on to point 24.2, regional group chairs. The outgoing chair for Group 2 is Hanfried Herring. Hanfried, we're really going to miss you. That is for sure. Following the adoption of the changes, however, to the FEI statutes, the position is now actually the chair of EEF Regional Group. In addition, just so that we are all aware, again, and we remind ourselves, as a result of the merge of regional groups 1 and 2, explained in the proposed changes of the statutes, EEF Regional Group maintains 2 representatives on the board. Theo Plokmakers from the Netherlands is the sole candidate being put forward. So we will ask for your approval for his elections as one of the 2 chairs of the EEF Regional Group. May I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Theo. And then, for the avoidance of any doubt, the second chair of EEF Regional Group is Armen Ozgorki from Turkey, who was elected by the FEI General Assembly in 2017 for the period of 2017-2021. Now we will proceed with the re-election of Luis Roberto Juini from Brazil for the term of 2018-2022. Luis Roberto has received 2/3 majority support from his group, Group 6. May I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Roberto. And now there's another gentleman that we're going to dearly miss, and that is the outgoing chair of the Veterinary Committee, Mr. John McEwen. There is only one candidate for this position, which runs as well until 2022, and that is Mrs. Jenny Hall from Great Britain. May I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Jenny. Moving on to the election of the FEI Audits and Compliance Committee member, and that is the re-election of Janice Shardlow from Great Britain, who is the sole candidate for the term of 2018-2022. May I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? And we're very happy to have Janice again. If you're watching us, Janice, congratulations. So we will take the elections of the deputy group chairs and the election of the vice presidents after the lunch break. As many of you know, upon the election or re-election of a president, the vice presidents must tender their resignation, which they have done. So we will announce and present to you after the lunch break the names for the vice presidents going forward. Now we will just review the appointments that have been made by the Bureau at their meeting earlier this week for the committee members, and this is for your information. There is a slide that will be shown. So for the Veterinary Committee, we have Mr. Tim Parkin and Mr. Yves Rossier, both serving from 2018 to 2022. These have been appointed. For the Medical Committee, we have Zoltan Paul from Hungary. For jumping, we have Daniel Garcia Nigaglioni from Mexico. Dressage, we have Irina Makanami from Russia. For eventing, we have Jeff Sinclair. For driving, we have Mr. Miguel Ángel Gutierrez Camarillo. For rating, we are happy to have the chair of Sven Frickseid from Switzerland, and as members, Paulus Berkesens from Netherlands for the term of 2018 to 2022, and Magdalena Swareska for 2018-2019. For vaulting, we have Mr. Rob De Bruyne from Netherlands and Anita Flamand Prochaska from Austria. For para-equestrian, we have David Hammer from Great Britain. And that sums it up. So first of all, also thank you so much for those outgoing members for all the work and hard dedication that you have provided and your input in our committees over these years, and many congratulations to all those newly appointed members. So now we move on to FEI Solidarity, and there I hand the microphone to the President.
Thank you very much, and sorry to bother you again. But as President of the FEI, you are automatically also President of the Solidarity Committee, and I think that's a very important signal. It was my predecessor, Royal Highness Princess Haya, who introduced FEI Solidarity and wanted to underline the importance of the development programs in the FEI by making automatically the President of the FEI chair of it. So it means that is really a responsibility under the President, and I think it's the right way to do. You have received in your documents the full report of FEI Solidarity, so I will give you an overview in a couple of slides. The achievements of FEI Solidarity during the last 4 years, I think there were some new programs that we have introduced. We created an IT platform for national federations to help them in develop their software and databases. We introduced the equestrian sport educative events, the famous ECEs. The World Jumping and Dressage Challenges were reviewed, and we adapted the formats better to the reality and in such a way that they are better supporting the development of the sport in the different countries. We have new models in the FEI coach education system, and this is for vaulting and endurance. In 2017, we started with a pilot product for the FEI course for Secretary Generals and Administrators, and the program is since 2018 on full speed. And again, we had 27 people from 17 different national federations in Lausanne for a week, where we try to explain what the FEI is doing, how we can work with them, but also to understand from them how we can better serve their national federations. And we are going to go on with this administrators course for the future, also thanks also to the support of the IOC. And then we started an FEI Solidarity Retraining of Racehorses project in partnership, and we are grateful for that, with Longines. Now, if you take a look at this slide, you see the increased number, I would say, of the number of projects that were approved, projects introduced by national federations for specific development projects in their country. And you can see here the evolution. You see also 2019, because we had the meeting of the Solidarity Committee in September to approve the projects, to review and approve then the projects introduced by the national federations for the future. And we are still increasing the number of projects. Here we are in 2019, we have approved 71. So in total, we have already done 350, or we have 355 projects that have been approved by the FEI Solidarity Committee. Also important is our Solidarity Officer, Jean-Philippe Camboulive. He did a lot of visits, as you can see. I think his miles must be very high. I think he's not gold, but platinum probably. But he visited all these countries, and I can tell you it's not for holiday. These are very intensive visits. They are well prepared. He is then in contact with, of course, the National Federation to help them to structure their organization and the development, but also in contact with sport ministers, national Olympic committees, and many others. Then I think what is important, and I'm pretty proud of this, is that again, and our CFO explained it earlier today in the accounts, that we were again able to do two things. One thing is not using the Solidarity Fund, but using our operational to pay for solidarity activities. Secondly, to add again 1 million to the fund, so that makes the fund stronger and the program for the future more sustainable. And this is a non-profit organization, and I always say we need to make profit to pay for our development. That's why it is important to have these commercial programs and to have strong partnerships with commercial companies. The IT platform, we have 30 national federations that received the platform between 2015 and 2017. 11, and it's not very easy. I mean, it's hard work, but we give it free, and then national federations can make further adaptations in function of their needs. So we have 11 national federations where the platform is fully installed and up and running. 16 national federations are in process of installing it, and then 3 federations took a look at it and decided in the end not to do it. But the FEI department, IT and Solidarity are working national federations with the national federations to get this installed. And if there are national federations interested to learn more about this IT platform, Gaspard Dufour is here, Jacqueline is here to help you and to provide you with this information. Famous equestrian sports educative events. 128 were delivered from 2015 to 2018. There were 3 different technical levels. 40 federations participated in it or were involved in it, with 40 technical experts operating. And by doing this, we had already the opportunity to educate 390 officials. I spoke already about this, the FEI course for national federations and secretary generals and administrators, and we adapted the format after a first pilot project in 2017. We thought it was also important, whereas in the beginning it was only for administrators, it was also important to involve the secretary generals, so that we don't come in a situation where we have somebody who followed the course as an administrator in Lausanne FEI headquarters, and then coming to the national federation, and then having a situation where the leadership of the federation said, no, what you are saying is wrong. So that's why we also now invite the Secretary Generals. 5 days of courses. You see here the topics. I gave already an idea about the number of participants. I must also specifically thank the FEI staff because all the departments contributed to this course, to the syllabus also, gave also the courses. So it was also for the FEI staff really a tough job. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the staff for having supported this and for supporting this course for administrators and secretary generals. Thank you very much for that. We have, this is a picture of these people. You see all the different countries they are coming from all parts of the world. And again, we will reopen an application process in 2019, and the course will then take place back in October. I think we still need to finalize the dates, but we will communicate to you as soon as possible. Retraining of racehorses. During many of the visits I did with national federations, we identified that it would be good if these young racehorses that are too old to race, but still very fit and very young, to transform them and to get them available for equestrian sport. So that's why we start this program. And as you know, Longines is active as well in racing as in equestrian sport. So it was a perfect match, I would say, a perfect project to find the support of Longines to help us with that. And I'm absolutely extremely grateful for that. So what is the goal? Of course, to grow equestrian sport, to educate coaches and riders in the specific techniques of retraining of racehorses. So there was a course for technical experts, and we call it tutors, in Singapore earlier this year. It was a three courses of 3 days is what we are aiming for, with 3 technical modules. And in this course, different federations from that region were involved, and the coaches received a certificate of attendance. Then a very important point for the FEI is, of course, our coach and education system. And we have, until now, you can see the number of coaches that participated, that we educated over the years. And you see that this number is always increasing, and the number of courses and workshops also. And I would like to take this opportunity also to thank our tutors, because these are the people that are driving this program. And I think it is very successful and very important for the development of the sport. We have our world challenges. We have them in jumping and in dressage. You see here some figures. Participation in jumping over 1,900 athletes, in dressage 650. Between 55 and 38 countries are competing in it. So we are really reaching out there to everybody. So you see here the statistics. In dressage, we are quite stable, I would say. In jumping, we had, of course, in 2017 a record year, because it was a challenge that also counted as qualification for the Youth Olympic Games. That's why it was extremely popular in 2017. And I expect, but we still need to decide on the qualification system for the Youth Olympic Games in Senegal. But if we would use the challenge, and I think this is a very good product, we will also see more participation, more competitions in 2021. I would like also to say something about these Youth Olympic Games, that it is important to use the challenge. And we discussed it with the IOC that we want to get rid of the universality cards for Youth Olympic Games, as we have a perfect system in place to qualify athletes through the challenge. So we had the World Jumping Challenge final then. It took place in Uzbekistan, and you see here the podium. Gold by an Israeli athlete, silver by an Argentinian athlete, who, by the way, also participated in the Youth Olympic Games, and bronze from a rider from Uzbekistan, from the organizing country. And it gives you an idea. All the different continents are also represented on the podium. And it was a nice group, and I heard from Jacqueline, I couldn't be there myself, but that it was a great championship with great new friendships built together during that championship. So, conclusion for me, the FEI Solidarity Program is 355 national federations projects, 50 technical experts in programs around the world. We educated 390 national officials. We have, in the meantime, over the years, educated over 2,700 coaches, and there were 90 of the 133, now 34 national federations involved in this. So this is growing, and we would invite those who don't know the program yet, or don't know it because they are only just newly elected in their national federation, to contact our department. Jacqueline and Jean-Philippe are here, and we are there to serve you and to help you with our development program to develop the sport in your country. What are the plans for the future? Because it's a dynamic program. Very important, I think, is that we asked, the Solidarity Committee asked the Solidarity Officer to look at how we can actively more help national federations. Because one of the problems that we are confronted with is that there are many, I would say, experts around the world that are offering their services at sometimes very high rates, but that they offer services, but they don't really do a transfer of knowledge. And this is what we would like to achieve by finding a system where we can have on a regional basis some FEI experts that will be paid by the FEI, and that will have a very clear mission to transfer knowledge to the national federation instead of hiring their services to a national federation for a specific purpose. So we are looking at that because that's one of the very important needs that were identified during the many visits I did to national federations. We will also now develop the paradressage coaching module, and we had a meeting in FEI headquarters with the people that are supporting this to create this module, so that is on the right way. Same thing for driving. There also we have the intention to involve driving in the coaching program. And then we think about the development of conferences of coaching for the really high-level performance coaches. So this is, I believe, my presentation, and of course more details in the report, but if you have any questions, I'm very happy to take them. Thank you. Any questions? No? Then I think the next slide will be about the appointment of the Solidarity Committee. As you know, except for the President, the other members, they are every year appointed for 1 year. We propose 3 modifications. So we will have in Group 2 Ulf Hellegstrand, the President of the Danish National Federation, instead of Theo Ploegmakers, who you just elected as a board member and who has probably now much more important obligations to the EEF and to the FEI. Another replacement is regretfully, but the maximum term is 4 years. And Her Royal Highness Princess Haya, her term comes to an end and she cannot be re-elected any longer. And I would propose there to appoint His Highness Prince Moulay from Morocco, the President of the National Federation of Morocco. And I must say that when I visited Morocco and I saw what he created also as a legacy for Her Royal Highness Princess Lala Yamina, I was really very impressed. He's really very dedicated to development, so I strongly support this appointment. And then from Group 9, a very dynamic president from Swaziland, Glenda Warburton, for Group 9. So I would like to ask your approval for the appointment. All the other members were already approved in the past. So I would like to ask your approval for the composition of the FEI Solidarity Committee for next year. In favor? Who is against? Nobody? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, and then I would like to congratulate these people again with their appointment. And last but not least, this is solidarity, and I must say that I'm extremely grateful for the people in the Solidarity Department. They are very, very, very well motivated. They have the heart on the right spot, and I would like to thank Jacqueline and her team really for the devotion and for all their great work for the development of our sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We're moving on to point 27, veterinary matters, and here I'd like to ask John McEwen to take the floor.
Thank you. Mr. President, Secretary General, members of the FEI family, it's a bittersweet moment for me. I present my final veterinary committee report to you all and make my last presentation, well, almost my last presentation. I'm extremely pleased that Jenny Hall has been elected to succeed me as chair. The committee is in very safe hands. I was going to ask Jenny to stand up so you could recognize her, because this is where you take all your concerns from now onwards. Please remember that. Jenny? Thank you. Remember the face. I have tabled a report, so I will not go through it and take your time with detail, but I want to highlight just a few points. We have a new education system which we've rolled out, which is proving to be very successful and is in line with the policies of the FEI. Biosecurity is a major issue for us at the moment. It takes an awful lot of Joran's time, and I think we should thank him for his work he's been doing with governments around the world. We have to get that right. We have to be involved. It is laborious, but it is very, very important. International horse movements. I'm going to present on point 39.1 the work that's been done by the technical committee supporting the very important private-public partnership with the OIE that the IHSC, which is the FEI and the IFHA, have had running. It was created by the FEI a long time ago. It seems like a long time ago. And it's been very successful in the work that it's done. The final point on the veterinary report that I want to raise is the global injuries surveillance. This program has been extended, and I'm very grateful to the board for approving that extension. It is absolutely critical that we have evidence base on horse injuries. It helps support our regulatory structures. It helps protect the horses in our community. It's very important from a welfare point of view, so thank you for that. Moving on to point 27.2, there were no decisions taken by the Bureau with regards to the veterinary regulations. I will ask now our Veterinary Director, Goran Ankerstrom, to present article number 1008, stables, for approval. This was discussed well at the regional meeting, and I appreciate the input from the groups. It was very constructive. I gave a clear view of the Veterinary Committee's thoughts on this, and we have suggested an approach to implementation, so I give the floor to Joran.
Thank you, John. Mr. President, your members, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank all those nations that have provided feedback on the proposed changes of the veterinary regulations for 2019. We have, as said, one separate vote, and that is the implementation of Article 108. This was discussed yesterday during the rule session. The article stands as it is, but for implementation, there will be a best practice by 1st of January 2019. Not written here, but what will happen is a close cooperation with the federations that are affected by this change during the year, and there will be a full implementation for 1st of January 2020. May I have your approval for this extension of the implementation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joran. I'll move back to the veterinary regulations, and I want to thank the NFs for their feedback. The process which we had for feedback worked extremely well for us. We had a lot of support from a lot of national federations, and I know going through all these regulations is a laborious job for national federations, but your feedback was helpful and creative and constructive. And it is, I think, a very important part of the process of creating a regulatory structure. So I echo what Joran has just said. I thank you for that. Now I ask you for approval of the veterinary regulations, please. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Thank you, and I want to make some final remarks, if I may. I'd like to thank the members of the Veterinary Committee and the Department for their hard work, support and friendship over the last 12 years. It's been an interesting trip, and the support has been terrific. We have a very functional committee and a very functional department with a very big workload. And I think Jenny is going to recognize that as she steps into my shoes. I'd also like to sum up my experience as an FEI board member very quickly before I get shut off by our Secretary General. I've had the honor of serving the FEI at a time of initially great change and modernization, and Ingmar's referred to that earlier. And more recently to consolidation and good governance, for which our organization and our president have been rightly praised by the international community. And some of that praise has been high praise indeed, Ingmar. So thank you, and thanks Sabrina, thank Ingmar, I thank the board members and the national federations. And having learned from Ingmar, I've learned a lot from Ingmar over the years, some of it good, some of it not so good, but I've learned a lot. And I would like to thank my wife. She's my rock.
You're a very smart man, John. All right, then we move on to clean sport. So we will now ask for your approval for the Global Equine Anti-Doping Control Medication. Oh, no, we have the report. I'm sorry.
We have a report.
That's you, John.
Yeah, it's me. I told you there's more. You don't get rid of me that easily. 28.1. I'm just going to highlight the points here again in this report. You have the report. We had a full review of the equine prohibited substances list. It's been running for a long time. It was brought in very quickly with the support of our laboratories. It's actually been extremely successful. We've had very few problems with it, but it was time to have a full review. So we had an independent panel of experts review it, and I'm very pleased with the work that they've done, and that's been implemented. We've published detection times, and I have been one of those criticizing the FEI over the years for not enough detection times. The treating vets have asked for this time and time again. We had 9 new detection times this year, and Joran has promised me that he's going to provide more and more, and I'll hold him to that. And we've had a very thorough tendering process, which we do every 4 years, for the appointment of the central laboratory. I had oversight of that. It was extremely well done. All the factors that were reviewed that we need to have a harmonized process to give you the very best central laboratory that is available to us. And our central laboratory is key to all our work. They are essential for advice and support, and for technical issues and for research purposes. So we did that as well. Thank you very much, Sabrina.
Thank you, John. So then we move on to 28.2, which is the approval of the equine anti-doping control medication regulations. May I ask for your approval, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? So these rules have now been approved. We now move on to point 29, Medical Committee report, and here I'd like to ask Dr. Peter Whitehead to come to the podium.
Mr. President, Secretary-General, board members, delegates, I'm very pleased to actually give a very brief report on the activities of the Medical Committee. I'm used to having to give brief reports because I'm normally put after lunch, and I'm aware that everybody's falling asleep, but now I'm aware everybody's quite hungry, so it will still remain brief. Last year, we were given a mandate by the Bureau to cover certain subjects in our meetings and discussions, and I'll go through these. As far as concussion is concerned, which is a subject we're learning all the time about this, on the website there is a lot of information for both athletes, officials, and my colleagues. They can download recognition tools and also a new flowchart to follow in competition. Concussion isn't always easy to recognize. Sometimes it's fairly obvious. And so, in line with some other sports, I'm now working on an assessment form and possibly, or hopefully, an app that can be used by anyone to see whether concussion may have occurred. And there's a very important saying, and I think this is really important for my colleagues to listen to the people perhaps on a cross-country fence, whatever they have seen. And this is a really important thing. If they see something that doesn't look quite right when someone's fallen off a horse, then say something. Let us know, because concussion can be very subtle. Hopefully, we will be putting together a video which can be used for briefing officials. As far as helmets are concerned, the committee studied current FEI regulations, but we also looked at regulations from as many national federations as possible, or those that actually do have regulations regarding helmets. I was asked by the committee to actually make this statement regarding helmets as well, from our point of view, that helmets should be worn whenever mounted. And we have to say that as a medical committee. This goes for every discipline. And so we looked at all the regulations and we looked at standards around the world, and we have actually published a list of standards that we recommend as far as recognition under the general regulations where it states protective headgear. So it's defining protective headgear. And this, again, goes for every discipline. Really important this year, we've developed an online reporting tool for officials to use. This, as John was saying, statistics on injuries, whether it's horse or human. Humans are important, it's not just horses. I'm really used to following vets, but actually we have an online system now which is working. It's important that this information gets to the national federations to try and prevent further incidents, further injuries, but also in the place of concussion, that somebody is not riding, was concussed, therefore unable perhaps to make decisions or whatever, and then a second injury causing catastrophic problems. We've implemented this for all disciplines other than eventing, and the reason for that is eventing do have a very good system already, but it's important that our online system within the FEI also takes into account the other forms that are being completed in eventing. Fence judges report if a particular incident has happened, but also various other things, so that they are integrated, and this will happen. This year, it was brought to our attention within the committee the role of driving grooms. And having seen some driving cross-country through obstacles, I realise these people are at quite great risk at times, and I've seen some very serious injuries amongst the grooms. And so we investigated how we might collect the data on grooms. We've been able to do this in a very simple way now by attaching a groom's injury to the actual athlete and therefore being able to monitor it, follow it up, send the details to the national federations, and actually to give us an idea as to how serious the problem may be. The point of the online system is that in certain instances of serious injury or concussion, the National Federation is automatically informed immediately within 24 hours of this happening. Again, this is to allow the National Federation to follow up as necessary, but also because applications for competition are coming through federations, and the federation has to declare that the athlete is fit, they will only know if, in actual fact, a previous injury has been reported, and they're able to then decide that the rider or athlete is actually fit to continue. We're very pleased that officials are taking on board this online system, and the numbers reporting are increasing the whole time, so I'm really quite confident the system will work. We wish to also help federations in their decision on fitness to ride, fitness to compete, and so therefore we'll be issuing some best practice guidelines. We also looked at prize-giving protocols, which vary obviously within disciplines, and a member of the committee went through this very thoroughly, and we have actually sent a number of recommendations to the different disciplines. Obviously, these are recommendations. The disciplines themselves have far more knowledge of their sport and what is practical or not. Oh, and I'm sorry, I always have to bring in a British rider whenever I talk. Safeguarding again was raised at our committee, but has really been handed mostly to legal, with us being available in the background for any opinions. One of the other subjects in the mandate was recreational drug use by athletes. This is covered in a lot of our educational programs. We are aware it happens, and I think it's important, along with WADA, that we actually, if information does come through to us, which it has done on a number of occasions, a couple of occasions, we can target test. It is very important that we have this intelligence coming through to us, and WADA are very keen that if people are suspicious of bad practice, drug taking, it should be reported through to the legal department. These are the numbers of testing this year, and people say, well, do human athletes test positive in equestrian? Yes, they do, and this particular one, only one this year, was actually an anabolic steroid use. Testing is going to increase in 2019, and again, in line with WADA regulations, we also have to do some blood testing this year to actually keep the numbers going. And blood testing is done for certain substances which are very difficult or impossible to detect in urine. Some of these are things like erythropoiesis stimulating drugs, which actually increase the sort of oxygen carrying capacity in the blood. And you think, well, why should that be in equestrian sport? Well, if we just look perhaps at endurance, you have to have stamina, and you have to go for quite a long time during the day. Increased oxygen carrying can be useful. Our main role is education, we feel, however, to try and actually let people know. And it's very interesting this year that in the first quarter of the year, we received as many therapeutic use exemption applications as we did the whole of the previous year. And I think this is as a result of education, that people are now applying and realizing that anti-doping does apply to them. The outreach at WEG was very well attended. This is along the guidelines given to us by WADA on their outreach program. And again, I would encourage people at the moment to certainly look at the WADA website on the educational programs they run. And so everything we do must comply with WADA. My main message on this slide is please do let Catherine at the FEI, Catherine Bollon, know who the contacts are within the federations. It is very important that we have somebody that we can talk to within those federations. And finally, if you do have medical officers attached to your federations, please do let us know. We do actually send emails out to colleagues updating anything that's happening on the website. So please, finally, let us know who the contact people are within your federations. You will be getting questionnaires sent out again at some stage for these contact details, and sadly we've had quite a poor response in the past. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. But perhaps, Peter, before you leave, I see 2 hands up already, so you need to get back. And
I tried to run.
Thank you. So maybe if, Ulf, you could stand up, and then we will go on with you. Thank you. So, no, Ulf, sorry. We need a microphone. I know you don't.
Thank you very much for your report. It's very interesting to see. One question concerning helmet. We know by good evidence that most of concussions actually happens from the ground, not when mounted or driving. Why don't you include wearing helmets in your recommendation for example, wet checks, etc., etc.? That would be very, very good opportunity, because most of the accidents concerning concussion actually happen from the ground.
I think that's a very good point. It's something we have discussed, especially in the safe handling of horses at trot-ups was brought to our attention. And I remember in 2012 at the Olympic Games in London, where I was the medical manager, the first medical incident I had was when horses were being unloaded before competition, and somebody was struck in the face, quite a nasty injury, but it certainly allowed the London Ambulance Service to realise how serious our sport was. I think we have looked at it, and there's a lot of opposition to wearing helmets and making it an actual rule, and it may be a very difficult one to enforce in many circumstances. So we have put the recommendation that a handler, perhaps at trot-up, should be, or they do know their horse's nature. I know sudden accidents can happen at any time, but some horses are far more risk of rearing or causing problems, and we do actually make that recommendation. If you feel you are at risk, please wear a helmet. Depending on demand, we will go further on those recommendations. So if we have more support or people want us to look at other incidents, we will do.
Thank you. As Frank has just reminded me, actually there was a proposal being put forward in the past, and it wasn't approved by the General Assembly. But again, you will look into the recommendations, yeah. So George, please maybe stand up so they can see you. Thank you.
Hello, George Dimaras from Greece. Thank you very much for your report. My question is related to human anti-doping. And I know that in many jurisdictions lately, the use of medical cannabis is allowed. And lately I see jurisdictions where also the use of recreational cannabis, the recreational use of cannabis is allowed. Do you have any information to give us how WADA is looking at this and what is this going? Thank you.
The current situation is that cannabis is a banned substance, or the constituents of cannabis are banned. Therefore, if somebody is on medicinal cannabis, they apply for a TUE, a therapeutic use exemption. And some have come through to us at the medical committee. These have to be actually given, have to be sent to us with strong medical evidence as to why that medicinal cannabis is given, and they can be approved in those circumstances where the TUE committee feel they have been given all the information necessary to comply with WADA. Recreational cannabis is not approved. If that is found, that will be a ban. I think it's a very difficult actual field, but as I say, this again is where we will possibly be target testing as well on intelligence that's sent through to us in certain competitions. But no, it is a banned substance, but medicinally there is a way of approving it. The other thing we always remind our athletes with a drug like this, if it is approved through WADA, they still need to be aware that in some countries it is illegal to have cannabis with them. That's a reminder. We do try to look after our athletes. We're not there with a stick. But yes, sometimes we have approved drugs, but we remind them also that not every country in this world will allow them to use it within that national jurisdiction.
Any further questions for Peter? If not, thank you very much, Peter. One more question.
It's actually probably Mikhail correcting me on something.
Yeah, or it's George, or is George asking where he can get the TUE?
Michael Wench, Legal Director of the FEI, just for the avoidance of any doubt, it's prohibited, cannabis is prohibited in competition, and the test will be in competition.
Yeah.
So that's why the TUE requirements are, of course, for in competition.
But I will add that the constituents of cannabis stay in your system for quite a long period, and therefore, if detected in competition, it will be an offence. Thank you.
Now I think we're good. Thank you very much, Peter. So we move on to the FEI Management Report. So you will have received the management report, which highlights the various activities that the non-related sport departments have been working on during the year. Are there any questions regarding this report that you would like to address with myself or with part of my team? No? If not, before I hand over to Ralph, who will make a presentation on marketing and commercial activities, I'd like just to make an announcement regarding per diems. As you all are aware, the elected and appointed members of the FEI are nowadays extremely active and work very, very hard, and have been they dedicate really a considerable amount of time to help feed input in their expertise in our various committees. So, with the exception of the FEI president, from henceforth, appointed and elected standing technical committees, executive board and bureau members as of 2018 will be provided with a fixed yearly indemnity. This additional allowance will cover living expenses above the travel and accommodation, which will still be paid by the FEI, and is standard practice really with other organizations such as the IOC. The per diem is non-cumulative, and I will tell you what the fees are now. So executive board members will be receiving a one-time fee of 5,000 Swiss francs. Bureau members will be receiving 3,000. Standing committee members 1,000, and standing committees that meet only once a year, the amount of 500. The amounts will be paid at the end of the year, which means that those for this year will be paid only at the end of 2019. The total cost of these fees to the FEI is the amount of 141,000 Swiss francs. Are there any questions? No? If not, I'd like to ask our dynamic commercial director, Ralph Strauss, to the stage, please. Thank you, Ralph.
Dear Mr. President, General Secretary, members of the board, dear delegates. Last year, during the FEI General Assembly in Uruguay, Montevideo, we introduced a new commercial and marketing strategy. It focuses on capturing new markets, on engagement with a broader audience, expansion of our reach, an increase in fan participation in our sport, and the creation of new commercial partnerships. The strategy revolves around the uniqueness of each of the FEI disciplines, which, as you know, have their unique participants, their own fan base, characteristics, identity, and specific commercial partners. The FEI is not governing just one sport. It is governing 7 unique and distinct sports. Over the last year, we also had the privilege to work with the newly established Commercial Advisory Board under the leadership of Arman Otskorki. We have focused on implementing each discipline's brand, developing a dedicated digital designation, implementing several promotional campaigns, all while working to find new commercial partners. And I would like to share with you some impressions on how this came to life.
Bob Sinclair, Mr. Feel Bad. Yeah. We're gonna rock the boat, rock it till it breaks down, rock the boat, bring it to the underground. Batman's go, Boston Square, we get it on.
Digital is key to the success, and as you know, there have been many changes in the media landscape, consumer behavior, how devices are being used, bandwidth, new technologies, and this has come with numerous new opportunities to deepen relationships with our existing fans, but also engage with new audience around the world. We have, as communicated last year at the General Assembly, around 750 million fans, equestrian fans around the world, and about 37 million people who ride in one of the equestrian disciplines at least once a week. We have been looking to extend our reach by focusing on the digital output from one competition point of view, and two, developing new content around the horse, such as the horse and the human relationship, instructional videos on how to ride or how to tag a horse, riders' health and fitness, horse health and fitness, and behind-the-scenes stories on equestrian life. All of this content has been developed under the Two Hearts umbrella. In parallel, we have been focusing on building digital destinations for each of the FEI disciplines and have extended our reach by establishing the web presence for the FEI in China. We have set very ambitious digital targets to be the #1 international sport federation in fan engagement and digital growth. As 2018 is not yet over, we are still waiting for the reports whether or not we achieved this target. But I am already very proud to say that during the period of the FEI World Equestrian Games in Triance, which we have monitored separately, the FEI was #1 in engagement on Facebook and #1 in engagement on Twitter. So that's already some promising results. Over 2018, we increased our viewership on FEI.org by 25% to now over 30 million page views on a yearly basis. In addition, the number of unique visitors increased by around 50%, and this is a strong indication of the new audience we are capturing with our digital strategy. On Instagram, we came close to 300,000 followers, which represent an increase of 54% compared to last year. One of the things that we found, and this is also some of the things we need to share with all the national federations, is that Instagram stories proves to be a very good tool to drive engagement for our sport. YouTube views at the moment are close to 9 million, which is an increase of 62%. And the number of registered users on our YouTube channel has increased with over 300%. Facebook video views also increased significantly. In all fairness, mainly on the account of the FEI World Equestrian Games, where we did a lot on Facebook. And we are now reaching close to 45 million video views, which represent an increase of over 70%. The Facebook following also increased rapidly after the opening of the discipline pages, and we are now just short of 1 million followers. So I expect within the coming months that we can send out a press release that we have 1 million followers for our channel. Last year we mentioned the launch of our discipline Facebook pages. And since the launch, we have about 270,000 incremental followers across the different disciplines. What is interesting to see is that dressage has been most successful compared to all the other discipline pages, with an increase of around 600%. And the other thing, what is interesting to see, is that the dressage community is the most engaging community. They share the most comments, they share the most posts, and they are very active with all the content we are putting on our channels. We have also launched a website in Chinese last year, which features relevant content from the English website, which is then translated into Chinese. Also, our social media channels in China are now actively managed by a Chinese editor who joined our digital team in our headquarters in Lausanne last year. We've also experimented with new forms of content, specifically for digital. One example is the Live at Tryon. I don't know who of you had an opportunity to watch it. It's a 20-minute daily show, which was broadcasted daily during the World Equestrian Games. It's showing backstage. It's very light, in a very funny way, a lot of interviews, but in a fun setup. And one of the great advantages, and one of the things we are learning at the moment as well, is the advantage of the digital formats is that you can get an instant feedback from the community. If they like it, they will share it, or they will post a like. If they don't like it, you will read it back in the comments. Here are some highlights of the digital show from Tryon.
This is Live at Tryon.
I feel amazing.
This is fun.
I know. Hi, honey.
That's cute.
That's the bad driver alert.
Whoa!
Excellent work. He's ready.
Why didn't you say coffee cup?
That's a to-go coffee cup.
Thank you guys for being good sports.
Are you learning a lot about FEI and sports?
No.
Children, unfortunately, always tell the truth. The success of the new FEI commercial strategy was acknowledged earlier this year when the Federation won bronze at the Association Excellence Awards in 2018 for the best marketing, PR and social media campaign. Now, having great events and great coverage is very important, but making sure that people know about these events and know what is going on is as important. And to this end, we have developed over the course of the last year a number of promotional campaigns around the various events and series. The FEI Communication Department has also been crucial in ensuring that the media picked up on these campaigns, which helped to amplify the reach across the world. One example is the B1 campaign, which we developed for the World Equestrian Games in Tryon. It's an umbrella campaign which we rolled out across digital, TV, print and social media channels. a campaign like that and rolling it out across all those channels really helped us to engage with a community, with a wider community than the community which normally follows the sport. And we saw quite some strong results in this. Technology will also increasingly play an important role in our sport and gives us opportunities to enhance the fan experience. One example of this enhancement of interaction with equestrian fans is the newly launched Dressage Judging E-League. It's a co-creation with our sponsor SAP, and dressage fans around the world and in the stadiums can judge the various FEI Dressage World Cups, collect points during the series, and have a chance to win a once-in-a-lifetime trip to the final of the FEI Dressage World Cup next year in Gothenburg, which is also sponsored by SAP. The E-League is just one example of the changing media landscape and how technology can contribute to increase the fan experience. For TV exposure, at this point in time, you would need to double the number of channels in order to get like half the exposure you got 5 to 10 years ago. Although there is a reduction in consumption of real-time content, there is still a strong demand for live in sports content because people want to experience and see it as it happens and when it happens. We have therefore invited all FEI national federations to a broadcast and digital media workshop last month in Lausanne to learn from various industry experts, including IMG and Eurosport, on trends and best practices in production, distribution, sports presentation and on-screen branding. The presentations have been recorded and are made available on Inside FEI. So when you have an opportunity, you can find it there. We have used extensive research to understand the market and to shape the FEI commercial and marketing strategy. But still, there are so many unknowns, such as how many riding schools do we have around the world, how many leisure riders, how many national events, and so on. We all know that the equestrian sport is big, but we don't know exactly how big. We have therefore developed a short survey which we will distribute to all the national federations, and we kindly ask your support in responding to this. We then, of course, will share the results of this survey with all of you, which you can use to promote the sport and to find new commercial partners. And finding new commercial partners remains a challenge. I think everybody present here today will know that. Football is dominating. There are many different properties in the marketplace, and a lot of new properties are being implemented and presented every week. And there's an increase of competition from the E, be it Formula E, be it esports, and a lot of commercial brands are now also focusing on these properties. I think we are very fortunate to already have a strong sponsor portfolio. Currently, we have 7 sponsors with Longines as our top partner. We are very thankful to all the sponsors, what they do for the equestrian sport. And I think a special thank you is at place for Longines for their commitment to the sport and their strategic vision in developing the equestrian community. As mentioned by Ingmar this morning in the opening speech, we have signed some new partners. One is the French camera equipment company Movency. And I don't know if you know the Pixio technology. You put a sensor on the body of the athlete, and then there's a camera standing there which follows you and records and can even live stream what you are doing. So it's a great opportunity for training purposes. This relationship is geared towards improving the training performance in dressage. Announced yesterday, we signed an agreement with the international travel company ATPI. ATPI has about 100 locations worldwide and works with a lot of the major sports. They will run our corporate travel meals as the FEI official travel agents, and they will also start preparing and proposing travel services for events and national federations, which of course are optional, and if you're interested in using those services, then it is up to you. In addition, we will create a number of equestrian holiday experiences and promote these on fei.org. We've also recently signed an agreement with Fosun as title sponsor for the Best Athlete Award at this year's Longines FEI Gala. Mr. Wen, Vice President of the Fosun Group, is here today, and tonight we'll hand over, together with our President, the trophy for the Best Athlete Award. Getting interest in sports starts with an understanding of the sport and seeing its value. We have therefore cooperated with various media to cover each of the disciplines. And this was targeted at an audience which has an interest in sports marketing. Our efforts to change some of the perceptions and to further modernize the image of the sport has been an integral part of our sales strategy. And we have developed following video to introduce the magic of equestrian sports to potential partners.
Yeah. You ready? Hey. Let's go. Bet. Yo, once again I'm back around. Real shit back in style. Haters reconcile. I'm so black and proud. First class tickets now. Feet all in the eye. Everybody looking down. Everybody get red when you brown, huh? Look at me, up. I'm putting it down, you picking it up. Checking the models, they want us to go to college just so we can be stuck. Go to school to make a living, or teach yourself to make a fortune. Common sense, welcome to the apocalypse. Show one of the horsemen. I don't need your mandate, don't need you to elevate. I'm about to detonate, cause I'm at my prime. Yeah. I'm at my prime. Said I'm at my prime. I'm at my prime. Hey, hey, I'm at my prime. Whoa. Said I'm at my prime.
This music is best listened to loud. That's 2017 and 2018 has shown a very strong growth, and for 2019 we will continue to focus on growing the key areas and to further promote our magnificent sport worldwide. In line with the presidential program, which Ingmar has published, we will put a special focus on the youth in 2019. Thank you very much.
Don't leave, Ralph. There may be some questions for you. Are there any questions for... Oh, yes, okay. Can we have a microphone over here, please?
Thank you for such an inspiring report. I just can't imagine, or I could not imagine how we could so well modernize such a traditional sport. I think this is wow. This is really great. I can't help myself from thinking what type of success we could have if 134 member countries could follow your example. This is just fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Indeed, congratulations, Ralph, to your team as well as the communications team for everything you have achieved so far. I think we're all looking forward to have the 2 million Facebook followers next year, maybe. And the music was fantastic. I'm ready for tonight's dinner and party. I just wanted to make one comment as well. When it came to the FEI House that was created for the World Equestrian Games, it was interesting and very flattering to see the president of the IOC, Thomas Bach, taking notes on best practices and asking his people to really do something similar in the future for Youth Olympic Games or Olympic Games for the IOC. So that's showing that we're doing a pretty good job. And again, many congratulations. So I think we can move on to one last point before lunch. And I'd like to ask the chair of the FEI Tribunal, Henrik Arle, to come to the podium, please, to make his report. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to deliver the activity report for the FEI Tribunal for 2018. I'm afraid this report will be less colorful than the previous one, and there will be no background music. First question, what is the FEI Tribunal? It is a key element of the FEI legal system. The duties and the powers of the Tribunal are defined in the statutes and the general regulations. I'm sure you are all aware that you just by approving the new general regulations have added to our duties and powers in the field of harassment and abuse. We work in close relation to the FEI headquarters and FEI staff, but the parties in any given case must be able to trust that we are impartial. This is an element of good governance. Our cases cover a variety of rule violations. Quite frequently, we deal with anti-doping and controlled medication cases. The Tribunal decides appeals. By definition, an appeal is a request to change a decision made by a person or body in our sport, such as a ground jury or an appeal committee. We also decide issues concerning interpretations of the statutes, the general regulations, and the sports rules. And we may review any matter involving horse abuse. The Tribunal consists of a chair and a minimum of 6 members. We are supported in our work by a highly professional clerk. The candidates should have legal expertise and appropriate knowledge and expertise of equestrian sports. There were no vacancies in connection with this General Assembly, but there will be a call of candidates for the position as chair. I will be outgoing after next year, and so will, or the term of 4 members will expire also next year. So this is a message to you, delegates. Please make sure that we, at the General Assembly next year, will have a number of good nominated candidates who have the appropriate language skills, the required qualifications in terms of expertise, and a strong dedication to justice. Some highlights for the last year. This report actually covers the period from 1st November 2017 until the last of October this year. We introduced 3 new members. They have all been working on cases together with experienced members and also doing their own cases already. We introduced modernized internal regulations for the tribunal, which came into force in March. We have started the implementation of the guidelines for fines and legal costs in effect as of 1st January 2018. We have still been dealing with some cases from 2017, even from 2016, so it's a gradual transition into the world of the new guidelines. We also have had revised equine anti-doping and controlled medication rules, in particular in the field of minors, that is persons under 18 years of age, who can have a special procedure and are entitled to lower sanctions. And we have been dealing with an increasing number of agreements negotiated by the FEI with the persons responsible. Now, a set of statistics. The equine anti-doping total cases that were rising from 2015 to 16, from 2016 to 2017, have now leveled out. Still, the number of the total testing results is 101. So it has flattened out, but it's not on a clear route to decrease. We have a breakdown showing the three categories: doping, controlled medication, and fast track. Fast track is a somewhat simplified procedure available to first-time offenders with less severe sanctions, and the first fast track cases are handled by the legal department. Another breakdown shows the number of total cases by discipline. We see a high number of cases in jumping, but it has decreased from the year before. We see a high number in the sport of endurance, and it's going up still. The other disciplines show smaller numbers, but also with an increase in the number of positive test cases in eventing. The same breakdown per discipline, but now the anti-doping, the banned substances only. A new thing to report is that provisional suspensions have now been imposed also on so-called additional persons responsible, and these were registered trainers in the sport of endurance. More statistical information to digest. The tribunal has decided 40 cases with equine positives in total last year, and one significant observation is that 8 cases with equine anti-doping involving the banned substances and 1 controlled medication case resulted in no suspension and no fine due to the fact that there was no fault and no negligence on the part of the person responsible. We have had 3 cases with a 2-year final suspension, 1 with a 17 months, 3 cases with 12 months. And you see also the numbers for other categories. Now this is pure statistics, the average numbers. An average suspension time of 5.7 months certainly appears to be short, but the reason is that the number includes also the decisions that resulted in no suspension at all. The fines amounted to an average of 1,568 Swiss francs. This number also includes the cases resulting in zero fine. As a consequence of the gradual implementation of the new guidelines, this number is certainly going to increase. We also had other cases in addition to the equine anti-doping and control medication. We had 3 positive human anti-doping cases to decide, 1 abuse of horse case. We had 3 breaches of other rules committed either by athletes or FEI officials. We decided on 2 appeals concerning pony measurements, and we had 1 appeal lodged by an FEI official against the FEI. The Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, issued 1 decision in the field of equestrian sport in 2018, and included in that decision was a confirmation of the policy that we have adopted to have a horse provisionally suspended for 2 months for any positive test of prohibited substances. 2 of the tribunal cases were appealed to the Court of Arbitration of Sports, but they were both withdrawn later on. Many tribunal cases can be decided on the basis of documents submitted by the parties. If not, we arrange a hearing. We had 10 hearings, 7 preliminary hearings by conference call, 2 final hearings by conference call, and only once we arranged a final hearing in person in the FEI headquarters in Lausanne. We received 13 applications to lift provisional suspensions, 2 concerning human anti-doping, 11 concerning banned substances in horses. Some of them were approved and the suspension lifted, others not. And we received 28 agreements negotiated by the FEI for tribunal approval. That concludes the activity report. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer, but please understand that I cannot comment on any individual cases. Questions?
Good morning, Sönke Lauterbach, Germany. In the middle of the presentation, there was a figure that the final sanction for banned substances as well as medication substances is both times less than 6 months. Shouldn't there be a greater difference? Because for banned, I understand it should be normally 2 years. I know there's special reasons to reduce it, but this sort of struck me that it's the same.
I tried to explain that because it strikes everybody, and the reason is that there were these 8 banned substances cases that resulted in 0 suspension.
Further to your question, Sönke, there is also a clarification. Banned substance cases, we did have these new categories of specified substance where there is a more likely explanation that it's a non-doping explanation due to contamination and so on. So we had many of those cases as well. That's why it's led to a lower sanction on the athlete, which was specifically the goal of introducing this specified substance concept.
Thank you for the report. Is it possible to have this sent to the federations? Because I understand it was not sent.
So all presentations today will be, all presentations actually during the week will be put on our website for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, we have another question in the back.
Yes, Venezuela. Patricia Vellutini. I'm really interested in understanding about those 8 cases of banned or controlled substances that have been proven to have no fault or negligence, as I am in the middle of a case. So I was under the impression that it was once found a rider or a horse to be positive, there was it was immediate. There was no case to prove negligence or intent. So if I could have a little bit of a further explanation with regards to this.
The decisions have been published on the FEI website under FEI Tribunal, and the details can be read there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henrik. So we will now break for lunch, and we will be back at 2 o'clock. And when we get back, we will do the election of the vice presidents and the deputy group chairs, and then move on to the Equestrian Community Integrity Unit's report. Thank you very much, et bon appétit.